Hello, everyone, and welcome to a very special edition of Locked On Magic. I have gathered the 5 Magic blogging families here for the trade deadline. Before we dive in, I do want to apologize for a few things. First, apologize to my guests for being a little bit late, and apologize to our listeners. My intention was to do this live. Unfortunately, there's a technical issue on my end that did not allow me to do this live, but I still wanted to make sure we get a lot of different Magic perspectives in on this big NBA trade deadline day. Before we start, you know me, my name is Philip Rossman-Reich. I'm the site expert and editor over at OrlandoMagicDaily.com, as well as the host here at Locked On Magic. Let's introduce the rest of the 5 Magic blogging families. Let's start with you, Jonathon.
Jonathon, what's going on, everybody? Thanks, Phil, for having us. It was maybe not as an eventful day as Magic fans thought we might have, but yeah, we're going to break it down. Jonathon from the 6-Man Show. Happy to be here.
Aaron.
Yeah, let's go clockwise. Aaron Goldstone, Orlando Pinstriped Post. Also excited to be here and match some faces with some names of some of these guys that I've talked to on Twitter, and just excited to talk Magic and trade deadline.
Since Aaron has us going clockwise, Al.
Perfect. Well, guys, again, Phil, thank you so much for having us tonight. Again, like Jonathon mentioned, not the night that we expected to have, a little more quiet than we expected. But again, Al Grulon with Orlando Magic HQ and the OZone podcast, and excited to join you guys. Should be a fun night.
And Steven.
This is fun. I've had all of you. I've been in interaction with all of you on a show in some capacity, so I'm really excited to have us all together. Steven from Close Up Magic. Psyched to be here, guys.
Yeah, and I think this is the largest, at least the largest virtual gathering of Magic bloggers, and probably the largest gathering of Magic bloggers at one time since the infamous meeting of the original 5 families at All-Star Weekend on 2012. But that will remain legendary for those that are OG Magic blogverse guys. But let's start with what actually did happen before we dive into what maybe didn't happen, could have happened, or what will happen. The Orlando Magic did make a move at the trade deadline. They traded a second-round pick, which is top 55 protected in 2023. So is it really a second-round pick for Bol, PJ Dozier, a future second-round pick, and everybody's favorite player, cash considerations? PJ Dozier has already been cut from the team. The Magic also cut Michael Carter-Williams and Etuan Moore to fill those spots. Dozier's already been cut from the team. Bol is out for the season. I mean, the way I joked, I initially joked about it in my article as the Magic just moved deck chairs on the Titanic around today. Jonathon, what was your initial reaction to the move that the Magic actually did make today?
Well, I mean, I joked on Twitter, but it was like the fulfillment of the prophecy. You know, when we talk about John Hammond and Jeff Weltman, the wingspan, rules overall. You talk about guys like Mo Bamba and Jonathan Isaac that they've drafted. And it was like, man, if the Magic could get Bol, and funny enough, a few weeks back when the Nuggets originally tried to trade Bol to the Pistons, everyone's like, that's all it took. Why didn't the Magic trade for Bol? And here we are. So, I was like, okay, I guess this is what we're doing, but kind of already had an idea with Bol's injury history that we wouldn't see him this year. I was pretty intrigued by PJ Dozier. I kind of wanted to see if he could give us anything, but yeah, he was gone before he was here.
Aaron, Bol's obviously out. He's a restricted free agent at the end of the season. Will Bol actually be seen in a Magic uniform at some point in the future?
That's a tough question. You had to spring that one on me. Okay. I don't know. It just kind of depends on his medicals, I guess, and what kind of records, the Magic see, because they're not going to see him, on the floor this season, like Jonathon just mentioned. But, he will be, a free agent, and the Magic will be able to control, whether he's back with the team or not. But, at this point, I really don't have the information to make a good call other than just saying, it was worth, the free look, on him, get him in the facility, get him around the organization and kind of check in and feel out if he wants to be in Orlando, how interested he is, in continuing to rehab and further his career. and playing for Orlando. Because I think today this move was made more for flexibility and for financial reasons, obviously with the Celtics. The Magic get a second-round pick, but we know how they value those picks. So this is really just kind of a procedural move, not necessarily something right now. I think that will like be helpful on the court. But I guess he's got to come to Orlando, and the Magic will kind of check out, his temperature and where he's at. It's just so hard to make a call right now if we ever see him in pinstripes or not. It would be fun because of his length and everything, and maybe he could potentially fill a role sort of like when Mo Bamba, gave the Magic if Mo's not back next year. But I have no idea. I mean, who knows? That's a tough one.
Yeah. Obviously, Bol Bol's, I think his reputation and his popularity around the league kind of far outpace what he can do on the floor. Al, what do you think Bol is a guy that the Magic should keep around? I mean, obviously we don't know what restricted free agency will bring for him, but the Magic, we'll get into this, I'm sure, a little bit. The Magic have a ton of cap room next year. Is this a guy that the Magic should think about keeping beyond this season?
So I think, as Aaron mentioned, I think it's definitely worth a look, right? It's going to be now with us for the next few months, heading into the draft and heading into summer league. Get him in your team. See how he reacts. Does he like the environment? Do you like how he's fitting in with the other young guys on the team? Definitely worth a look. If I'm not mistaken, he's 22 years old. So again, a super young guy. Definitely worth a look. You have now him to worry about, Mo Bamba. Again, the length, can't even joke around that. You know how the Magic like length. Having those guys in practice going at each other is going to be fun. Jonathan Isaac hopefully getting healthier. I definitely think it's worth it. I mean, you gave up a second rounder, which may not even convey. So pretty much you gave up nothing to give this guy a look. I don't see any risk whatsoever for the Magic in this trade.
Yeah. I mean, if that pick does convey for if that pick does end up conveying, then something's gone very, very right for the Magic. If it's top 55 protected, Steven, we obviously didn't get a chance to meet PJ Dozier or get a chance at him. I actually did kind of like the thought of adding him as well, just because of the defense that he provides. Obviously, there's some rough parts around the edges. I thought he was playing really well before he tore his ACL, but another guy with a torn ACL. Are the Magic losing out in not even giving Dozier a chance?
Okay, so I'm just going to be real with you guys.
Do it.
I'm not a Bol fan. I was disappointed that out of the two injured guys, he's the one that stuck around for now. Like, I would much rather have PJ Dozier on there. I have this thing with like size to length ratio and functionality in the NBA, and I just don't know if he's ever going to like get to a spot to where he's going to be someone relied upon. So if it was me, I'd cut Bol and sign PJ Dozier to rehab his ACL tomorrow. But obviously I don't make the calls. So we have a lot of guards. Did it hurt to cut PJ Dozier? Probably not in the long run, because I don't know when he hurt himself, but we might, even if he was around this summer, maybe he's not even healthy enough to get a look in like summer league or something like that, or in training camp. So, cutting him probably is the smart thing to do to give us an open roster spot to give someone else a look this year. Like, if they really want to go for the mascot of the Orlando Magic, James Timma, he can fill in that spot. But I like the flexibility of having an open roster spot there. I almost wish we had two open roster spots, to be quite honest with you. Yeah, that's sort of my quick answer with a little bit of hard opinion on Mr. Bol.
No worries. I mean, I think that's perfectly fair. Like I said, it feels like Bol's reputation and popularity and like kind of the wow factor and kind of name recognition far outpaces what he's actually on the floor. Like, there's a reason why Denver tried playing him at the 3 instead of keeping him at the 5, or there's a reason why he's always out at the 3-point line. Like, the Magic have seen a lengthy big who only shoots threes and doesn't want to get in the paint. He's had a bunch of nagging injuries throughout his early career. There's a reason, like, as good as Bol seems to be, he slipped into the second round. Like, these NBA guys are not dumb. Like, guys slip for a reason. Yes, guys get overlooked all the time. Like, you do have a bunch, but for the most part, these guys are properly rated when it comes to the NBA. But before we dive into what didn't happen, the other bit of news today was the Magic dropping Michael Carter-Williams and Etuan Moore to make room for these two players on the roster. Start with you. What are the Magic losing in dropping Michael Carter-Williams on Moore? Was this deal the right thing for them to do, and kind of, not give up on, but kind of concede on these two veterans?
That was the confusing part for me after the trade went down. We kind of got the news of, hey, we're dropping Moore, we're dropping MCW. What we were sold on was the fact that they were in the locker room to provide veteran leadership to our young roster. That made sense all along. Now you decide to waive them, and now we really have a young team. Now we pretty much have Gary Harris, Terence Ross, and Robin Lopez really as the vets in the locker room. So I feel like there's a void of that veteran leadership in the locker room right now. But what does that mean? The good news could be that, hey, we now have Markelle coming back pretty soon. We don't need two guards to be sitting on the bench doing nothing. We could be using maybe a Lakeland forward to come in and give us some minutes. So I think we're going to definitely miss the leadership portion of what they can bring to the table. But I'm excited to see what that means in the short term for the Magic. Again, does that mean Markelle is ready? Or does that mean we're going to call up maybe Devin Kennedy again from Lakeland or Tima from Lakeland? So there's some unanswered questions right now, but definitely intriguing what it could mean at the end of the day.
Yeah, obviously, like both those guys. I mean, Michael Carter-Williams more than Etuan Moore. Sorry, Etuan, we love you, but Michael Carter-Williams really endeared himself to fans with what he was able to help the team do in 2019. Aaron, just describe a little bit what the impact of a guy like Michael Carter-Williams was for this franchise, and kind of what the Magic may have been missing from not having him this year.
Yeah, I mean, before everything kind of slowed down and got shut down in 2020, as far as what we could cover, when the Magic picked Michael Carter-Williams up in 2019, that really kind of changed some things and some trajectory more than numbers would indicate. When MCW came on, just his professionalism, but like just his intensity, and he was just so damn annoying for opponents. And so in the locker room, he was nothing but professional with me. I mean, he was just so thorough with the way he would try to explain how a game or a night went or what he saw on the floor. And even this year, he didn't play a second. He didn't play a minute. But I can't tell you how many times, like just the other night I covered the game, Wendell Carter Jr. got hit with a foul, a moving screen, and he was just livid. He was so hot, and the Magic called timeout, and he's barking Wendell Carter Jr. to the refs all the way back to the bench. And Michael Carter-Williams goes, calms him down, goes, talks to the referees, is kind of like the go-between. And he was just like, he's been there. He's seen it all in the NBA. Like, he went through the process in Philadelphia. He won, Rookie of the Year. He gets traded after winning Rookie of the Year. When the hell does that ever happen? Like, he gets bounced around the league. He's on his couch. He comes back to Orlando. He's seen it all. So in a short amount of time, he's played for some great coaches and, in college, in the NBA. And so he's got so much to share with young players. And this won't be his last stop. He's going to catch on somewhere else. And, I do wonder, like Al said, how's that going to affect the locker room, because he provided the Magic more this year, at least, off the court, obviously, than he ever could, even if he was healthy, on the floor, just by the way he communicated with the young guys in training camp and in practice and on road trips and stuff like that.
Yeah. I mean, I think I don't think we can understate or overstate how important Michael Carter-Williams was to that playoff run. I mean, I don't know about how you guys felt, but when I remember looking up at the end of the season and seeing that Carter-Williams only played the last 12 games with the Magic in that 2019 season. And I was just like, it felt like so much more than that. It felt like such a big thing. And unfortunately, I think Carter-Williams' tenure with the Magic was characterized the same way much of his career was. It's these like nice little bursts. You didn't want to rely on him too much. And then injuries just kept him from being on the floor and finding the consistency. It really felt like he had a nice home. Steven, what are your memories and I guess takeaways from Michael Carter-Williams, and how much do you think the Magic are going to miss him?
When I think of Michael Carter-Williams, I just think of toughness, and a player that gives it all on both ends of the court, with his flaws, but you never could question his effort, and that's something that's invaluable. And so for that, I think, like Aaron said, that's something that can be that can transfer. That type of energy can transfer to other younger players, and I'm a little disappointed we didn't get to see him like push these young kids up and down the court, these young men up and down the court, and really let them feel his intensity, because I don't, there's intense guys on the team that probably give it their all in practice, but like, he's a veteran that gets to experience that and really just kind of like terrorize them. So, it's a missed opportunity, and in a sense that it's, he was injured, right? I didn't expect him to really play, even if he was healthy this year. I'm more so just wondering like the effects of him not being in practices more so than in gameplay. So, I'm not upset that he is not on the team. Like it was going to happen sooner or later, but the fact, just that he wasn't healthy to be able to contribute in a mentorship in a more physical way is, I think, what's a little bit more disappointing in the whole situation. But overall, like, Michael Carter-Williams, like, positive impact on Magic in his time here, even though he only played, I think I saw something online that he only played from our friend Orlando Magic History, the Twitter page that we talked about before the recording. I think he said Michael Carter-Williams has only played like 88 games in a Magic uniform. So he definitely had some health issues. And it's just like, oh man, you were here for 4 years and only played just over a season. So, but that doesn't matter. Like, I feel like we felt his impact a lot larger than just those 88 games for sure.
For sure. Jonathon, just kind of turning to you on that impact. Michael Carter-Williams just always seemed to give this team a little bit of an edge. Like there's always that one guy who's kind of living on the knife's edge a little bit, willing to just be physical, willing to just get into guys. And we have Moritz Wagner to do that now. Mo Wagner kind of gets under guys' skin, but I feel like Carter, like Stephen said, MCW just teaches guys how to play with that little bit of nastiness and gave this team just a needed mean streak.
Yeah, I was going to say, I mean, thank God that we still have Moritz Wagner, because I think every team needs at least one or a few of those guys. And yeah, it's sad. I agree with Aaron. I don't think this is the end for, MCW. I don't think it's the end for Etuan Moore. I think there's a possibility those guys are maybe a little bit more ready to play than we were led to believe from the Magic. We'll see. That's just my conspiracy theory, if you will. But yeah, I think anytime you move on from a guy who was so instrumental to that 18-19 season, it was only 12 games, but I was joking around today, but it's really a serious thing when Isaiah Briscoe went down with the knee injury after he had replaced Jarian Grant in the second unit. We're like, oh my God, the season's over. We lost Isaiah Briscoe. And then here Michael Carter-Williams comes in and legitimately, helped, them close out the season and, into the playoffs. And everybody remembers the bloody nose, against the Raptors and him running down the court, after the refs. But yeah, I am a little bit concerned, the moves today, the veteran presence that we've lost. And, now everyone's speculating about buyouts with perhaps Gary Harris and Robin Lopez. And I'm hoping we hold on to Rolo. I do think Gary Harris is primed to be a buyout candidate. I know I'm probably jumping ahead here on the agenda, but I think the Magic need to take a good long look at the roster. And I think it's really important to keep some veterans around at this point.
Yeah, for sure. And I think that's the biggest concern. Like I'll note that at the practices that I've been to, you'll often see Etuan Moore kind of off to the side after practice. He's either playing 2-on-2 with Markelle Fultz. He was usually one of Markelle's kind of scrimmage buddies as he's trying to get back. So again, maybe not having him around is a sign that Markelle's ready for something a little bit more full, a little bit more real. Who knows? But he was also someone that I would see like sitting next to, like in post-practice discussions. Jamal Mosley would bring Jalen Suggs aside. They might have a computer up. They might just be chatting. Etuan Moore would be part of those conversations too. And like Aaron said, Michael Carter-Williams was constantly in people's ears during games. He was constantly engaged. And it's to me, the veteran issue is not just about having veterans and having some guys that can help show the young guys around. It's having guys who are invested in what this project is, invested in what the Magic are trying to accomplish overall. The Magic had a in Channing Frye. Channing Frye was not invested in anything that the Magic did as a team. He was invested in the people around him, and he kept it real. He's a great, like everyone will tell you, he's a great teammate. But I don't know if you were in the locker room at that point, Aaron, but like Channing Frye was completely checked out on team issues. He was not invested in anything the team did. But Steven, or Jonathan, sorry, you kind of got the next point. Let's talk about the things the Magic didn't do. We expected a trade for Terence Ross with 1 year left on his contract. We expected potentially that Gary Harris could get moved. We expected that maybe the Magic would move on from Mo Bamba ahead of his restricted free agency. First, were you surprised that the Magic were not able to get deals done with any of these players?
I don't know that I would say I'm surprised. I think we all kind of felt like we would feel pretty fortunate if we were able to get a first round pick for either Gary Harris or Terrence Ross. I feel like that there was always an element of that just not being realistic. Am I, surprised that they didn't make any moves at all really in that regard? Yeah, I am. But I'm relieved that the Magic didn't just take a deal just to move on from a guy. Like, especially Terrence, there's no rush to trade him. If you want to move him this offseason, you're still going to be able to do that perhaps on draft night or as we move forward into free agency. So I think you've referenced, plenty of times, Stan Van Gundy, I think it was, that said sometimes the best deals that you make are the deals that you don't make. So I think there's an element of that today. So yeah, I'm pretty interested to see what's going to happen with Gary in terms of the buyout happening, or if it doesn't happen. But yeah, with Terrence, you have him under contract. He's still on an affordable deal, so no rush to make a move just to help out the freaking Lakers. Who wants to do that?
Yeah, I mean, and at the end of the day, they got to give you something you want to. Steven, just kind of looking around the league at some of the other deals were made. Were you surprised that the Magic were unable to get a deal done for Terrence Ross and based off just what was out there?
I was a little bit, Terrence Ross has a very favorable contract, one that's attractive, $12.5 million this year, $11.5 million next year. And that's it, and he's comfortable in a off the bench role. But some of the teams that he was traded, or he was rumored to, like the Lakers, the Cavs, the Jazz, they made their moves early. And so I'm not surprised that a little bit of the suitors maybe were not willing to offer as much today as maybe some of the past teams that were potential spots for him. And if it comes down to getting just 2 second-round picks instead of the first that you're hoping to get, and you're not psyched on, there's no rush to go out and get those 2 seconds for me. So, am I surprised the deal didn't get done? Slightly. Am I annoyed? No, because that same deal today will be there this summer and even next deadline, in my opinion. So they can wait. And really, when you lose Michael Carter-Williams and you lose Etuan Moore, having a vet that, I don't know if you guys saw his Instagram today, but he posted a funny GIF of Leonardo and what's the name of that, Wolf of Wall Street, saying, "I'm not leaving." And to me that kind of tells me he wants to be here in a way. And so I'm not mad that he didn't get traded. I'm a little bit more in favor of having vets on this team than just filling empty spots with a bunch of youth. So I'm fine not getting 2 second-round picks for Terrence Ross today.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's definitely something that happened where the bottom of the market just kind of dropped off. Al, when you look at the marketplace again, just did the Magic do good? What sort of again? And then I guess moving forward, what sort of players should the Magic be thinking about now, understanding what this market was, if they're looking to move Terrence Ross again at the draft or moving forward to next year?
I think the goal needs to be for the Magic still to aim for that first round pick if possible. A team that may be desperate enough to really go all in next season. Hope for that. If not, a young prospect. That, I think, to me, that hasn't changed. Terrence Ross, that's what he does. He hits open threes. He's a great scorer off the bench. Any team in the league will be lucky to have him. That's the reality of it. So heading into next season, last year of his contract, expiring contract, I think if the Magic really want to move him, there will be a deal there for him. As Steven mentioned, it may not have happened today. maybe simply the suitors just were not there anymore for the Magic by the time that the deadline came. So why rush it? He wants to be here. By all that we know, he enjoys Orlando, so does his family. So again, why rush a deal? Why make a bad deal just to get it done today? So I think the focus remains the same. Get some draft capital, if not a young prospect in return.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's still the dream, and obviously, I think how teams evaluate what they're trying to do, and obviously, I think once draft picks are known, you know where you're picking. I think that becomes a little bit different in trading for draft picks. Like, you know, if you're thinking about the Lakers, a lot of us I think had, you know, maybe a Taylor Horton Tucker and a Kendrick Nunn for Terrence Ross, or Taylor Horton Tucker and a first for Terrence Ross. You know, who knows if Magic actually like Taylor Horton Tucker? They traded him away once. I don't know why they'd want to get him again, but you know, the Lakers might have been afraid to trade their first this year, because knowing that, hey, that could end up being 16, 17, it could be low teens. And we kind of need that now, since, you know, we're having a much worse season instead of in the 20s. A team in the 20s probably is thinking differently. And who knows, you know, maybe the Joe Ingles injury changed some of the calculus with Utah as well as a last minute thing. Aaron, as we get closer to the end of the season, you know, I would argue, a lot of people have been arguing with me, like, have you looked at Terrence Ross's stats? He's not having a great year. And I think we'd all agree he's not having his best season in a Magic uniform. But I think a lot of us probably would also say, well, it's also context dependent, because the Magic's bench has been kind of terrible for most of the year. And Ross has been a guy that sucked up a lot of focus. Do you think that played a role in what happened to Ross's market and how the Magic are thinking about things as they try to close out the season?
Yeah, I mean, maybe from the outside, you know, from other teams around the league looking at Terrence Ross, he's on the wrong side of 30, and this is his worst career shooting year. So maybe teams were a little reluctant. But, you know, even when he's not knocking down shots, I mean, we all know how streaky he is. He demands, at least on the Magic, he demands so much attention from other teams, from opposing teams' defense. I mean, I wrote a piece about, you know, some deals that I thought made sense, but I love the fact that they had, you know, a value in mind. Jeff Wellman and then John Hammond, they had a value, and teams didn't want to meet it, and so you hold on to him. This is not today was not an Evan Fournier situation where he has an expiring contract. Like, his deal's better next year than it is this year. And so, you know, you can move them over the summer. You can move them at this exact time next year. You're always going to be able to get a second round pick or filler or whatever for Terrence Ross. So if that's all you're going to get today, you know, again, he demands so much attention on the perimeter, even when he's not knocking down shots. He's going to open up stuff for all your young players. You know, let's remember the number one focus, this front office, like above anything else, is like developing the 20-somethings. And, you know, you can make the argument that he's eating minutes and stuff like that, but you could also make the argument he creates space and opportunities for them on the floor, and things get a lot more, you know, jammed up without that shooter and that scorer to focus other teams on. So, you know, I'm fine with it. I think I'm along those same lines as Jonathon. I think Gary Harris will probably get bought out. That'll be a really interesting next decision for the Magic, because it's like, okay, where are you at, Gary? Do you want to latch on with someone? Do you want to stay here? You know, are they more interested, the Magic, in doing right by him and kind of getting a good reputation built up around the league for taking care of veterans? Or do they say, you know what, you're under contract, you're staying here to, again, you know, keep that veteran presence in the locker room? So that'll be a really tough call with Gary, with Robin Lopez. You know, do we do right by you and buy you out, or do we keep you here because you're under contract and you could provide value to this team in one way or the other? I know I took a roundabout way of answering your question, but I'm fine with Terrence still being here. You know, there's other opportunities to move him, and I don't think, you know, the Magic really missed an opportunity today by not moving him. Because if it was just a second or a couple second, you know, round picks, even if it was Taylor Horton Tucker, whoever, you know, I don't see a huge miss there. I liked Terrence Ross in Cleveland. So when the Karis LeVert deal went down a couple days ago, and that took Cleveland off the table, you know, I thought that was probably his best fit. So yeah, it should be interesting to see how the rest of the year for Terrence goes and into the summer next year too. Reasonable contract next year. I mean, what, 11 million? So
11 and a half, I think. And
yeah.
yes, I think we will probably see Terrence Ross get shut down with like knee tendonitis or something. That
now, let me jump in really quickly, like 2 seconds. I felt better about this on this last homestand on Saturday night against Memphis. I asked Coach Mosley, I was like, Terrence Ross, 10 minutes, like kind of what's up with that? And he was like, well, you know, we were kind of getting blown out and I wanted to see some of the young guys. And so, look, that was actually kind of a positive answer. So if you apply that reasoning for the rest of the year, okay, get Terrence his regular minutes. But like if there's a game where they're either winning by a lot or probably losing by a lot, like he might err on the side of playing young guys. And so Ross is not going to take opportunities away from the 20-somethings. Like he's there to provide what he does and provide value. And I'm not worried about it. And I really like that answer from Coach. So.
Yeah, that was actually I remember listening back to that when I was going through the post game, and it was, you know, a little bit surprising at how honestly Coach Mosley answered that question. Al, we kind of started shifting over to Gary Harris. Unlike Terrence Ross, he was an expiring contract. If the Magic were going to get something, even if it were an Evan Fournier type deal, I don't know if there are any trade exceptions big enough out there to absorb him, or teams that would be able to get who would want a guy like Gary Harris have a trade exception big enough to absorb him. But were you surprised the Magic were not able to get a deal for Harris done? And is he a guy that gets bought out?
So I think the fan in me is surprised, right? We really expected to see Gary Harris gone today simply because we don't think, and again, I'm talking as a fan here, we don't think he'll want to be here in the long term in this rebuild. You would think he played his dues in Denver, was playing for a contender. He wants to go back to that environment again. Again, all assumptions. So if that is the case, you assume automatically he's going to get traded today for whatever we can get, second round pick, whatever it may be. But as you mentioned, the issue was the salary. The $20 million figure is not easy to match. How do you make that work? So apparently, based on what we know now, it couldn't get done. So now it leaves the conversation to a different topic, which is now, hey, do we buy you out? Do we do right by you by doing this for you? And I'm a firm believer the Magic will do right by him. I think that if that's his decision, he wants to end the season with a contender, they'll find a way to do that. We learned that last year with Gordon, Vooch, and Fournier. They did right by those guys. I don't see why they wouldn't do the same thing with him. I would also think that they talk to him during this week, if not today, and say, hey, this is what we got going on. What do you think? So I wouldn't be surprised if we buy him out. I also wouldn't be surprised if he ends the season in Orlando. He values, having the family stay here, not have to move at this time of the year. So we will see. But I think it's very likely that he might be bought out over the next few weeks.
Yeah, I think
Can I jump in for a second?
Go for it.
I just want to say I caught a little snippet. I was building a dresser for my upcoming daughter last night. I was listening to the Ringer podcast. I forget the name of the specific one, but it was Kevin O'Connor, and he had Bleacher Report Jake Fisher on it, who has slowly turned into a pretty credible insider in the NBA in the last couple of years. They were talking about like potential buyout candidates, and Gary Harris's name got brought up. The very first thing that Jake Fisher said before he got into the buyout aspect or trade aspect of Gary Harris was there's a possibility for him to return. And so when I heard that, and then I see that he didn't get traded today, I'm wondering if we are projecting our own feelings that we think he has on him for and I'm not pointing you out, Al. I'm just saying in general, like we've all talked about it ever since he got traded here, is his last year that, he's probably going to see someone that's going to get traded right as soon as he started playing better. And so I'm wondering if there's a plan bigger than that to keep him here. And maybe this is me just digging too deep into like a tiny little 3-second comment that Jake Fisher said, but I think he said it for a reason. And so it's made my head like spin ever since I heard it last night, because I've been like team re-sign Gary Harris for a very long time. I think he just adds so much to this team and takes very little away. So I don't know. That got me really excited. I just wanted to drop that nugget in there.
No, that was actually the next place I was going to go, because like Al said, the way that this Magic team has approached everything, and everything that I've heard about the way Jeff Weltman and John Hammond operate, is they're very player focused. They're very player first. They want to be there for the players. I mean, everyone in Magic Twitter has been buzzing about the photo of John Hammond kind of hugging Markel's kid. Like it's that close of a relationship. I mean, the fact that, Nikola Vucevic confirmed it, that the Magic that kind of involved him in those trade discussions, not necessarily maybe the specific team, but said, hey, we might have this opportunity to trade you. Would you be okay with that? Which places which places are you thinking about? It felt pretty revolutionary to openly kind of admit that a player under contract, and a really important player at that, was pretty involved in those conversations. I'm sure, Aaron Gordon kind of came out a little bit with the trade, not demand, but that he had asked for a trade and that there'd been some discussions about it. That it sure sounds like it was a lot more maybe familial, a lot more kind of friendly discussions than, say, what Ben Simmons and James Harden have done, than what Dwight Howard did way back when. It felt like it was something that, like, okay, look, we know the season's not going anywhere. We're thinking about taking the step. What do you think? And I'd also note that, like, CJ McCollum said Portland did the same thing with him as they were shopping, or as they were looking around to kind of reset themselves. And CJ said New Orleans was a place that I looked at, and that kind of spawned those trade discussions. So I think a lot of those things happened. And I think, to your point, Stephen, it's been widely assumed that the Magic will buy out Gary Harris. It's John Hollinger already put out his article of his buyout candidates. Gary Harris, I think, is second on that list, like very, very high on that list. There's a lot of people who assume the Magic might buy out Robin Lopez, but there's also an equal number of people that would say Robin signed with the Magic so that he could go to Disney all the time. Like, he loves Orlando. Like, there's reporting out there saying, like, Robin is open to staying as much as he's open to leaving. Like, it doesn't seem like he's aggressively pursuing. So I do think you guys are right that the decision to buy out is going to be Gary Harris's. If Gary tells Jeff Weltman, like, hey, I know I'm in the last year of my contract, I love what you guys are doing, but I want to play for a contending team, they'll do it. If they're already thinking about re-signing him, then obviously they're going to keep him. And figuring out the amount that you re-sign him to would be, I think, the trickier part, because the Magic's books are completely clean. Jonathan, I just want to get your thoughts on this then. What does it say about the Magic as an organization that, Gary's been given the chance to kind of reclaim his career this season? I think we can all agree he's had his best season in a long time, or at least since that mythical 2018 season that he had. And what does it say that a lot of us think that this decision on whether to go to a contender, do right by the veterans, is really his?
Well, I just like to make the point that we all know the Magic don't leak anything. So everything that we're doing, like, mostly is just speculation, because it makes sense. He played for a contender midway through the season, got traded to a really bad team, his contract expiring. He's been pretty close to having a lot of team success with the Nuggets. So no one really knows, at least in my opinion, what is going on or what has been said behind closed doors. It's really all speculation. But no, I mean, it makes you proud to root for a team that, we forget so often that there is a human element to this. And I think I myself am guilty of that, but I'm reminded of it each trade deadline. Like, going back to last year, after Evan Fournier wins the game against the Phoenix Suns, and Josh Robbins, asked him, after the game, like, what has it meant to you to be here? And, you could just see those guys get emotional. Everybody remembers the Vucevic, the first press conference with the Chicago Bulls. And, there's a human element to this that I feel like, especially if you're in the trenches every single day with these guys, it's hard to ignore. So there's an element of pride in the organization that we all, cover and, root for, that there's good people that are working there, and they, they don't turn a blind eye to the human element of all of this. So, I'm glad that the Magic operate the way that they do. I think it goes a long way with creating good faith with players, with agents. A lot of these players in the league, they all share agents, and they all talk about, oh, what was your experience in this place? How did they treat you, and everything like that. And, one thing that I feel like hasn't been talked about enough around this trade deadline and pertaining to the Magic is, at some point they've alluded to either just continuing to build through the draft or to accumulate assets, have long-term flexibility in the cap, that if one of these guys comes available, the Magic can kind of push their chips into the middle of the table, so to speak. And I don't think we can rule that out either. If we do buy out Gary Harris and we make the decision not to re-sign him, it seemed I'm glad the Magic didn't just make a deal to make a deal today, even if it was in terms of like renting out cap space or what have you, because they still have that long-term flexibility and they're continue to accumulate these draft assets. So that's kind of a long-winded answer, but I don't even know if I answered your question.
No. I mean, I think you hit it. I think you hit out a lot of key points, and obviously, I think it's a testament to Gary Harris that he's endeared himself enough to fans, because I think Magic fans, for the most part, there's certainly some that don't, but for the most part, understand the situation the Magic are in, and it's hard to attract quality free agents. It's hard to attract quality veterans to a rebuilding team. Veterans want to win. For the most part, they've done the stat chasing, they've done the numbers, they've got the money. They want to win basketball games. That's you want guys who want to win, guys who choose to go to a team that's gonna lose most of its games. You honestly don't want those guys. You want guys who again, maybe see the potential that the Magic have and are going to be patient enough to wait for it. But you want guys that want to win, and obviously, I think that's still the biggest thing that the Magic have to get to and challenge. And with that, I think we should kind of begin to turn our attention toward the future and what's in store the rest of this season as well as next season. Aaron, obviously, the Magic I think are going to be one of 3 or 4 teams with cap room next summer. It's not a good free agent summer. And so I think a lot of us were intrigued to see if the Magic would rent some cap space out and try and set themselves up a little bit for the offseason, or kind of make a big kind of offseason-ish move this year. Obviously, they didn't. What do the Magic need to see the rest of this season to understand what they need to do with that asset that they have and the assets that they have as they prepare for maybe the next steps of this rebuild and this team's development?
Yeah, I mean, the elephant in the room, and I don't know how we've gone 42 minutes without mentioning it. I mean, we've got to see if Markelle first and then Jonathon Isaac, if those guys can come back and get on the floor, because you want to see them play with literally everyone else that Jeff and John have put together and done such a masterful job putting together. Like, I think people forget. I mean, like 90% of this roster has never played a minute with either Markelle or Jonathon Isaac. So, even if they can get back for a few games, like there's value in that, just to kind of see what you have and see how the pieces.
Oh, we lost Aaron there. So we'll get him back soon, hopefully. Al, just kind of turning to you then. What do you need to see from the Magic the rest of the season, this last quarter of the season, to kind of give you a sense of what direction they're heading in?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing that I want to see personally is what we saw last week from the Magic, that competitive edge, fighting every single game, taking good teams down to the last minute of each game. That to me is the most important thing. See these guys play in meaningful games, not to get blown out like we did against Memphis, we did against the Celtics, because in those occasions, nobody learns. Nobody gains any experience. That's not good for us. So I think as long as these young guys are exposed to playing again in competitive games, they're getting plenty of minutes. That's the key. And of course, we can't forget about health. We want to see these guys finish the season strong, stay healthy, and again, just play competitive basketball. I think that's the key for us the rest of the way.
Yeah, Steven, just kind of getting a sense now. I think the summer is just a huge mystery, and obviously that draft pick that the Magic have is probably the most important thing that they still have to figure out for their offseason. It's probably the biggest piece they've placed. But what do you want to see from the Magic the rest of this season as they head into the offseason to kind of give you a sense of what direction they're going to go?
Competence. There's times when we're in games and, maybe it's a loss, maybe it's a win, but things look really together. And then sometimes it's like, it looks like there's only NBA players on the court for a single quarter. And I just like to see more for a quarter basketball. And that's really it. I could care less if there's wins or losses to it. In a sense, part of me is like, I'm not like, hey, let's go purposely lose, but I don't care if we win in a sense, because like we've already gone this far. I would kind of hate to ruin anything essentially, like without saying it. but you know, I just want to see like in the front office will take care of that like organically. So like I'm not saying they need to go throw games, but I just want to see competitive basketball in a sense with you know, and health. I want to see health. Like those are the two main things. I don't think there's like for me there's not like I need to see Franz have like, you know, 4 more 30-point games and be that guy. I don't need to see, you know, I'd love to see Fultz and J.I. get on the court and get in the mix, but it's really more just like competence with our players, and just some connections with the core guys. That's really it. I hope I answered your question.
Yeah. No. I think we all kind of want to see some of the same things. So let me maybe phrase the question differently for you, Jonathan. How would you evaluate the job that Jamal Mosley's done and kind of laying the foundations this season? And what more do you want to see from him, or what do you want him to emphasize? Maybe it's the same things for these last 20, 25 games.
Well, with Jamal, you know, I think, you know, he does deserve part of the benefit of the doubt. You know, it's his first year as a head coach. Obviously, it's a difficult task that he's been given in terms of, you know, the team hasn't been very good, but we also, you know, want to be competitive. We want the guys to develop. And I think, you know, rightfully so, people have criticized some of his, you know, in-game decisions or, you know, adjustments or sometimes lack thereof. But if you look at what he has done in terms of keeping the morale of this team I mean, it's almost never wavered. Like they're, you know, the Memphis and Celtics games, you know, maybe the body language wasn't great. But, you know, at some point you're going to see cracks, you know, in the morale of a young team that's had a season in which they've lost as much as they have. But, you know, for the most part, these guys are in high spirits. They're competing every single night. You know, they're not getting too low on themselves after losses. They're not getting too high after wins. I think that is, you know, especially for a rebuilding team, I don't think you can overstate how important it is to have a guy like that, whether it's your head coach, whether it's an assistant coach, whether it's a veteran in the locker room, just somebody that's going to keep the team even keeled, you know, the entire season. And for them to still be, you know, competing and fighting. I mean, I've heard you bring it up on your podcast a few times this year, Phil. But just the fact that this team almost like never lets go of the rope, and that's not something that we've necessarily always seen from Magic teams in the past. And for it to be, you know, a team with all of these 20-somethings and, you know, a rookie head coach, I think that speaks volumes to the culture that the Magic and, you know, Jamal Mosley are curating with this young roster.
Yeah, I mean, I think I would say, just from my experience, this group, and I know it's still early and a lot can still go wrong, this group feels very different than the early Jacques Vaughn years. Like maybe that's me looking for hope and trying to cling on to something, but I feel like this group is very different and doing things differently than the last time the Magic tried a long-term rebuild. I want to close up with one last question for all of you. We'll start with you, Stephen. What, besides drafting Jabari Smith, Chet Holmgren, Paolo Banchero, Jaden Ivey, those are the dreams. Besides whatever happens in the draft, what do the Magic have to accomplish this offseason to take the next steps? You know, again, assuming Markelle is healthy, assuming J.I. is back, assuming things that we expect to happen for the end of the season. But where do the Magic need to put their focus this offseason?
I think it's finding that veteran that's going to really help balance them out and take them to the next level. Maybe that veteran is re-signing Gary Harris. Maybe it's you know, I don't know who it is. You know, you know, that Gordon Hayward, that Kyle Lowry, he's kind of a weird example. Obviously, CP3 is the GOAT of putting bad teams together to the next level, but like finding a vet or two, and it's probably more than one realistically, to really balance out this roster and that knows how to make winning plays and teach a team how to win. That's really my thing right now for this summer, particularly now that we're going to have 2 open roster spots, like 2 more. And then who knows what happens with Gary Harris and Terence Ross. But, you know, with Moore and, you know, with Etuan Warren and Michael Carter-Williams gone, I mean, obviously we'll have a draft pick that'll fill one of those spots, but I just want to make sure that the veterans that we bring in are not really just guys that are going to like sit at the end of the bench and be okay. Like I want competitors on this team that we're bringing in players to play to help bring them in. Not that they need to take over like a young player's spot, but they should be fighting for it. I don't think we need to just give RJ a spot in the rotation if he's not making it at this point. Obviously he still needs to develop, but like I don't want another season of hoping we have a top 5 pick next year. So and we shouldn't with the players we have on this team and the potential of who we're going to overpay as a veteran to come join us next year.
Yeah, for sure. Al, where do the Magic need to put their focus this offseason to kind of, again, take that next step?
So I completely agree with what Steven said about the vet presence, finding that key member that can solidify the locker room again. So I think that's important. Number 2 for me would be using that cap space wisely. Even though we have some cap space available this offseason, you don't want to go out there and just spend it like we did back in 2016 when we just threw it at anybody that would take it. So I think, be careful with that. And the number 1 focus needs to be continued progress. So again, you want to see this team develop. We don't want to see this team back in the lottery next season. We understood this year what it's going to be. It was going to be a year where we're going to be developing and honestly looking for a top draft pick. Next year, that can be the goal. So I think if you get a solid vet, you use your cap space wisely and get healthy, we can definitely accomplish that next season.
Yeah, it seems like we're all in agreement there. Aaron, obviously offseason's still a long way away. But outside whoever the Magic take in the draft, what is the Magic's focus this offseason?
Yes. Sorry about that, guys. I was on my laptop and I was talking. So Steven, I heard you were saying that you are expecting. So I've got 2 little girls and wait till they get to the age where they start downloading a bunch of games and random stuff on your laptop and like then they forget to charge it overnight and stuff like that. It's so much fun, but I'm gonna blame my road as a good dad. So sorry about that. I really apologize. I'm back now on my. So this summer, obviously, draft is focus number 1 and hitting a home run there, and I'm sure we're all in agreement that they're gonna have a very high pick, and we'll all be at the mercy of ping pong balls, and we'll all get to read on Twitter everybody arguing every time the Magic do happen to win a game for the rest of the year about odds and stuff. That's so much fun, and we're all like so over that by now. But other than that, probably the same focus of last summer of bringing in the right mix of veterans to shepherd our young roster. I think our management is really solid at identifying guys that can add value, not necessarily on the court, but in the locker room. I mean, they did a really nice job with Robin Lopez and Etuan Moore and just the people that they bring in on the fringes, that they're able to come in and kind of mix. And that's not an easy thing to do. And the NBA is find people like that to be professional. And so identify those kind of veterans for the right price. I don't feel like they need to waste or blow a bunch of cap space. They're so far from competing. That's not the focus. Maybe look into a trade like this trade deadline where you can take some bad money for an asset down the road. They'll have that kind of flexibility. But it's all about find the best player, keep moving forward with your young core, and live to fight another day.
Yeah, Jonathan, I think we're all kind of in agreement on where the Magic need to go next and how they need to be strategic. But do you have anything to add to what we've all said here to take this team to the next step of this rebuild?
Yeah, I think what I'm really interested in and what I was interested in kind of leading up to the trade deadline is, especially if Markelle and Jonathan Isaac are nearing a point where they're ready to come back, I think we all expect them to give this team some kind of boost. What that looks like is largely dependent on how they look when they return from injury. But yeah, how they handle that the rest of the season, does Gary Harris get bought out, and how that affects your draft lottery status at the end of the year. I think a lot of people have made the point, even though I've been against tanking, but a lot of people have made the point on Twitter that this is the path that management decided to go down when they made those deals at the last trade deadline, that this was going to be a rough year for the Magic, and the light at the end of the tunnel is another high draft pick. But for me, I think you go into this offseason, you have to be careful. You want to maintain that long-term cap flexibility. But you have to make moves in this offseason, whether that be through the draft or, supplementing with some, short-term, contracts, even if you have to overpay a guy for a year or two to get them here. 2023, you want to make yourself look as attractive as possible as you can for entering into that 2024 free agency, so you can try to go and get one of these big, or 2023 free agency, excuse me, one of these big fishes and bring them to the Magic. Phil, I think you made a great point earlier. Orlando being a small market may not be the biggest free agent destination, but if you can sell winning to a free agent that you're the piece that we need to take that next step, I think you have a better chance of getting a free agent.
And honestly, like I would argue too, that free agency is not the way you get players. You need to be ready almost the year before, so you can grab them in a trade, so you can try and attract them that way.
That's a
great point. I think that's kind of the way these big fish are moving nowadays, and because they know that wherever their bird rights are, that's where they get their money. Kind of on the tanking point as well, I would point out that the Magic probably have one of the easier schedules after the All-Star break. They have a lot of home games coming up. So, I was telling everyone, don't be upset when the Magic win a lot of games late, especially with guys coming back from injury. They kind of did their tanking work early, and was it enough? Well, we'll find out. We'll see who else is sitting out. Steven, you had one more thing you wanted to add?
Yeah. And you're leading me right up to it, man. So I have not clicked sim yet, but I have Tankathon up. I thought it'd be fun just to do one sim since the draft is like kind of fun. So I'm gonna hit it right now. And we're in the number 2nd spot before I hit sim. So I'm spinning it. It did its wheel. Hey, it's a good day for Magic fans right now. I clicked it once. We jumped up to the 1st spot. We have the number 1 pick in the draft. I'm going to leave it
Why
at
are you
that.
wasting it today?
I want to have a little fun, guys. I want to have a little fun, all right?
Yeah, well, I want to thank you all for joining us to kind of break down the Magic's trade deadline, where the Magic stand, what they did, what they didn't do. It's really fun to have this many Magic bloggers and podcasters all in one space. Really do appreciate all the work that you guys do. I'm sure all the Magic fans do too. For anyone everyone who does not know where to find you guys, just let us know where they can find you. Jonathan, let's start with you.
Yeah, you can find us basically everywhere podcasts are sold. The Sixth Man Show, we don't sell them obviously, but on Twitter, Instagram at Sixth Man Show.
Yep. Steven.
I am primarily on Twitter. The podcast can be found at The Close Up Magic, where you'll find podcasts and occasional articles. Or if you want to interact with me directly, which is a little bit more of an active page, my personal page is at Steven0610. Thanks for having me, Phil.
No worries. Thank you for coming on, Al.
Yeah, on Instagram, you can find us at Orlando Magic HQ. On Twitter at the OZone Pod. And again, the podcast is the OZone Podcast. Thank you so much, Phil, for having us on today.
No problem. And Aaron.
Yes, I want to echo what everyone else is saying. Thank you, Phil, for getting this together and having me on. At Aaron Goldstone on Twitter. I write for Orlando Pinstriped Post. We haven't podcasted at a group of my site in a little while, so everyone else that's kind of got a functioning podcast, I would love to come on, because this was a lot of fun. If you ever need somebody to totally screw up your show and cut out midway and make sense, then I'm more than happy to come on and ruin everything. So let me know.
This is why you have multiple guests, so that other people can carry the burden and share the load.
Need carried. Yep.
Yep. Guys, I joke that there's the 5 Magic blogging families. Truly appreciate you all coming on the show, giving your perspective on the Magic, adding to the conversation here. I don't say this enough. I truly think Magic fans are a fantastic bunch. We're one of the quiet gems, I think, on NBA Twitter, as well as around the league. People who decry the Amway Center. Well, the Magic need to win a little bit, and I think Magic fans
will have our time to shine.
We will have our time to shine. We'll have our time in the sun. That's for sure. I truly do appreciate all of you for what you contribute to the Magic community. Truly appreciate you all for coming on my show. It of course is Locked On Magic. You can find us wherever you download podcasts, as well as streaming on YouTube. And you can follow me on Twitter at @PhilipR_MD. And of course, follow Orlando Magic Daily for the latest from me on the Orlando Magic. You can follow us there on Twitter at @OMagicDaily. Thank you guys again for coming on the show. I truly, truly, truly appreciate it. Thank you all for sticking with us and listening. Again, I apologize for not being able to get the live stream working. Hopefully we'll be able to do this again in the offseason ahead of the draft so that we can all talk a little bit more Orlando Magic basketball. For all of my guests, for the 5 Magic blogging families, this has been Philip Rossman-Wright. Thank you all again for listening to today's episode of Locked On Magic, or whatever Magic podcast you're listening to. We'll see you all again next time.